Okay, this video is entitled Weight Loss Total Exposure. And I have made some changes in my life. And basically, the way I've done it is through self-cognitive behavioral therapy. I did it to myself. Well, what is this, you might ask? It is thinking about your thinking, analyzing your thought, and seeing if you can find a better way. Now, it's extremely hard to do when what is broken is trying to fix itself. That is just not good. But it can be done. It can. And one of the things that has to happen, I really can't find any way around it, and I've looked and I've searched and I've tried to come up with every answer, but I can't. The answer is one of the things totally necessary to change an addiction that is sucking the life out of you. And I've said this before, total exposure. Secrets need secrecy. When you put them out into the open, and I know I've made a video on this before, they tend to lose their power. They don't like being exposed. And the addiction that I have suffered with the binge eating and the binge behavior, is very bad. And the problem is, you don't just fix yourself. You don't heal yourself over one day and you're fixed. You don't come out being a different person. You are constantly, this is something you have to work on constantly for the rest of your life, basically. And addictions, I think, are the hardest thing to overcome. And many people don't overcome, even with a lot of intervention, even with doctors, a whole team of doctors, this person listening to you, that one listening, this one. They could give you medication, they could do many things. And there's still, the success rate of recovery of everybody is not good. Addiction is very hard to break with even intensive teams of people analyzing you all day. Well, anyway, if they are analyzing you all day, chances are you're never going to recover because you're very extreme. But anyway, nobody's going to be analyzed all day. The only person that can analyze you all day is yourself. You can analyze yourself. And what I'm saying is, to change something that's an addiction, you have to, and in my case it's an addiction to food, addiction to binge behavior. Remember, it's not the food, it's the addiction is doing anything to the point where it is causing misery and suffering and pain. And you do it anyway, even knowing what's going to happen. You know there's a pain that's coming sooner or later. And you do it anyway. That's addiction. And it's embarrassing. It's humiliating. It feels pain. When you confront your weaknesses, when you confront the things about you that aren't good, it is an extremely physically painful experience. That's why people don't like to do it, and they don't do it, because the pain that's involved in doing it is very painful, because when your emotions are on the line and you're experiencing very high emotions, basically that is more painful than physical pain. It causes a physical pain that, if I was going to say how painful it was, if I could think of an experience of just an injury that would cause this much pain, I can tell you something which I think is on the same level that happened to me. When I was younger, I lived in an apartment and I had this long staircase. And I was going out, I had platform boots on, and guess what? I was rushing. Now, you should not be rushing downstairs in any platform shoes or boots or whatever. Bad idea. Well, guess what happened? I bet you can guess. Well, what happened was, I tripped and I tumbled down an extremely long flight of stairs, bruising everything, single inch of my body, pulling tendons. It was the most painful thing I can ever imagine. It was, you were just crying out of sheer pain without any thinking or anything. It was terrible. And then the pain that followed for a week of not being able to move any of your body was extremely painful. Now, when you confront an addiction and confront the things that are defective with you, that are just not right, and you have to deal with this and what caused this and all this stuff, it is equivalent to that pain. Now, I don't know one person who would purposefully roll down a flight of stairs, bruising their entire body and having excruciating, mind-blowing, blinding pain that lasts for a week. Nobody would choose that. Nobody would want that. So that's why people aren't doing it, because you have to experience this wretched, terrible pain. And who is gonna do that? Okay, you have addiction right here, right? Addiction feels good. Then you have to face the pain, but to face the addiction in the eye, to look at the addiction in the eye, is ridiculously painful. So guess what? Which one do you think your brain wants you to do? Your brain does not want you to choose the painful experience. It wants you to choose the pleasurable experience. And because the pain is so high, it's so painful, your brain wants to protect you. This is a protection mechanism. So instead of dealing with what needs to be dealt with, you're binging. You're getting pleasure immediately. Because in the midst of the binge, you feel there's some pleasure. That's why you're doing it over and over again. But the problem is, if you could do that behavior in a moderation, then you could still enjoy the benefits without the pain. So it's not stopping the behavior, it's stopping the binge behavior. And that's why I wanted to practice moderation, if possible, because I like the result. There's pleasure, they're pleasurable. It's only painful when it's done to this huge extreme level. So, what I need to do, and because I still have a lot of issues, it's total exposure. Total facing everything in the eye that you want to change, and looking at the ugly and not worrying, as I talked about before. And if you are willing to do that work, to that hard, painful work, I believe that you will basically have the best chance of fixing it, of changing. And that's what you're trying to do, of thinking about it and coming up with better solutions, better plans to handle emotions. And that's all I have to say. So I will talk to you later, and I hope everyone's having a great day.